Okay, welcome back to Expert Flyer. This is your host again, Lisa Caslin. And, we've been talking about sort of extreme remote working and telecommuting. We recently spoke with Sean Prime from Remote Year, and I really wanted to get a boots on the ground perspective. And my guest today is a young lady named Corritta Lewis, and she works for a North American company. They're a specialty retail company, and she is a senior HR analyst there. But she has been working remotely now with her partner and her little son for the past 2 years. And I'm so excited to learn about this whole journey that you've gone through, Coretta. So tell me how this started. Like, what made you say, I'm going to do this?
Well, honestly, the birth of our son. So we had an idea before we had our son that we wanted to travel full time. We just didn't know kind of how to make that happen. We just knew it was an idea that we had. So we had our son, and actually went back to work when he was 7 weeks old,
Mm,
and I hated it.
yeah.
So that kind of inspired us to say, you know what, this is not what we want. We want to travel full time. Let's figure out a way to make it happen. And I actually resigned from my job so we could travel full time. We had an itinerary. We were all set to go. We had sold everything. We moved into a hotel. We had, sold our house, and we were ready to go. And my boss said, "Well, can you work remotely?" And everything about my job can be done remotely. There's no need for me to be in an office because I
Yeah.
barely speak to people.
Uh-huh.
It's a systems job, not necessarily a people job.
That's right.
So he said, "Can you work remotely?" And I said, "Yeah." And we've been doing it ever since. We've taken road trips. I've worked in a car from rest stops and gas stations or Starbucks for Wi-Fi. Um, yeah, I've worked in Guatemala, and right now we're in Colombia. We lived in Mexico for a year, but we also took quick road trips. So quick trips to Disney. We've
Yeah.
done Sesame Plays. We've done all types of fun stuff.
That is amazing. So were you shocked that your employer put that to you? Gave you that generous offer?
Absolutely, because the company was very old school in the mindset that employees needed to be in the office sitting at your desk for 9 to 10 hours a day. That was the mindset,
Yeah,
not from my boss, but from the higher
corporate.
ups.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow. So do you think that this sort of shift in thinking and being more open to employees, working remotely to that degree, is a result of the pandemic?
absolutely. Because I say it was kind of the biggest work from home experiment in the world because everyone figured it out. Jobs where people said you couldn't work remotely, all of a sudden people were doing it in a matter of days, and they just had to make it work and did it for well over a year. And you kind of can't make that excuse anymore that it can't be done because it's been done.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and without any productivity fallout, I imagine.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, particularly in my situation, when they have young kids, um, daycare is expensive. You're spending thousands of dollars a month on daycare.
Yeah.
So that kind of cost savings, even though there are additional costs with internet and electricity and things like that, but the cost savings is significant. And you honestly, even though it can be difficult to find work-life balance, you have more time with your family than you did with your coworkers.
Yeah, it's true. And you don't, is there part of you that still misses the access to people that you're working with, the face to face, or it's it's not affecting you at all?
None whatsoever. I'm a
Oh,
I'm a very introverted person, so this actually works better for me. Um, and the job that I work now, my team is amazing. My boss is phenomenal. Um, so I even though I really enjoy working with them, it isn't necessary for me to speak to them every day. I could go days without speaking to anyone.
yeah.
Um, and it's not something that not necessarily doesn't bother me, but
Yeah. Just as
given my
long,
personality,
right, right.
going into the office for me was difficult.
Ah, okay. So just as long as you get your reports in on time, it's all good.
Oh yeah, and there's lots of projects that I'm working on, and like you said, reporting and things happening, and most people contact me by email anyway. So,
Yeah. All right.
um,
So I want to get down to some of the nitty gritty. So the first place that I know you were originally planning on going to Asia, right? I mean, this happened right
mhm,
smack before the pandemic, right? In January of 2020, and you were going to go to
yes,
Asia, but you were in Colorado at the time, so you got stuck there for a while, right?
hmm
And then where how were you able to go to, what was your first destination out of the country then?
Our first destination out of the country was Mexico because it was the only place we could go. At that point, I had been laid off from my job. That offered for me to work remotely. They had laid off roughly 300 to 350 employees.
Oh no.
So I was laid off, and I kind of sit down and I talked to my wife, and we said, we don't have any health insurance. Um, we have savings, which is good. We had enough savings to live on for at least a year and a half to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to get somewhere with low cost of living, and
Mm-hmm.
if in case we got sick, we needed to be somewhere where we could pay the bills,
Mm-hmm.
where we could pay the medical bills. So we decided to move to Mexico
Wow. What part?
to apply to Carmen.
Okay. Is there a big expat community there?
Yes, there's a big expat community, and more specifically, there's becoming a big Black expat community because we're both Black women, so
Uh-huh.
it's becoming more of a huge Black expat community.
Oh, that's good to know. That's great. Okay, so I mean, I guess the borders were open. You were allowed to go in, and did you have to get residency? What was this? You didn't need a visa, right? Or how how did that work?
So for Mexico, they've tightened the restraints now, but at the time in August 2020, when we moved there, the visa 6 months. You could stay for 6 months, and they were kind of just granting everyone 6 months because they desperately needed tourists.
Ah, yeah.
So they were happily granting everyone 6 months. So that's what the plan was. We were going to go down there 6 months, kind of feel it out, see what was kind of going to happen. You know, when can we travel to other places and kind of feel it out.
Uh-huh.
The plan was to only stay there 6 months, and we ended up being there 15 months actually. Our
Oh my
son,
goodness. Okay.
we enrolled him in school, and so we did do not border runs, but visa runs.
Uh-huh.
So we would leave. We did need to come back to the States. I got a new job where I'm at working now, so I did have to come back to the States, and every time I came back, we got a new 6 months. So that's how we kind of managed it. But now they are requiring people to get the residency, which isn't difficult, but we just chose not to.
Okay. Yeah, because you knew you were going to be moving on.
Exactly.
Okay. So once you wrap things up and I guess, mapped out your strategy where you were going to go next, how did you make that decision? What was the next place that you went to?
Well, while we were there, we popped over to Guatemala
Mm-hmm.
for a couple weeks, for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then we would leave and then pop over to the U.S. For a couple weeks. And Medellin and Colombia in general, I'm not exactly sure how it even got on my radar. Honestly, I don't plan too far ahead, which drives my wife crazy. I kind of just have these spur of the moments, like, oh, this looks cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
Kind of attitude towards things.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually saw a Facebook group called Black Women in Colombia,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, oh, well, that looks cool. So I started looking into that group, and I joined it and talked to a lot of different women in Colombia, and they were saying how beautiful it is, Medellin specifically. There's a lot more for our son to do. That's what we look for too. So kid-friendly things.
Sure.
So we spent a lot of times at museums and children's museums and parks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So
What?
that's kind of how we ended up in Colombia.
Okay. How did what part of Medellin did you choose to live in?
So we chose to live in Loreres,
Oh, okay.
is the name of it.
Yeah.
So and honestly, I chose that based off of it said it was the most popular place for expats. Uh, and the quickest access to things. So something that's important for us is, being able to get to the grocery store quickly and
Uh-huh.
having parks, being able to take them out to parks to, burn some of that Tyler energy,
Oh yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because I've been reading a lot about Poblado.
Yeah, that's a huge expat community, but it's also very expensive. So we try to stay
I gotcha.
we we try to stay within a certain budget. And in Mexico, we lived on $1,000 a month.
For
So
3 people. Wow, that's
three
good.
people, yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so would you say Laureles has the same level of English-speaking expats, or do you really need to know Spanish?
You really need to know Spanish in Colombia in general. Colombia isn't really a country where a lot of people know English because it isn't a huge American tourist destination.
Yeah.
A lot of people from Canada, I have noticed, are here because my wife connects with a lot of moms for play dates and things like that. And a significant amount seems to be from Canada, but there isn't a large US presence like there is in Mexico. So a lot of people don't speak English.
Are you
It's
bilingual?
rare. No, I'm good enough to make it through. Having lived in LA and California for 10 years,
Yeah.
I'm good enough to kind of, but it's different than Spanish in Mexico. So it kind of trips me up a little bit.
Ah, okay. How so?
Uh, just like Medellin, you would naturally say Medellin, but the double L here is a J instead of a Y. So it's
Ah,
Medellin
I
and not
wondered about
Medellin.
that. Okay.
Yeah. So calle in Mexico would be calle, which is street. Here is calle
Oh,
or
interesting.
carrera. Or their words are slightly different, so it can be difficult to catch sometimes.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, overall, is this journey what you were hoping it was going to be, or were there things about it that kind of knocked you off kilter where you were like, you know what, maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side?
No, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it was nothing that ever discouraged us or kind of changed our mind because we went into this knowing it was the three of us. You
Uh-huh.
know, we lived in California. All of our family was in Ohio, so we never really had the aspect of. It's always been the three of us. So whatever it is, we could always figure it out. And that's kind of how we approached it. I mean, that's how we always approach it. And plus, our son, honestly, he's been flying since he was 8 weeks old, and he's been on well over like 100 flights. So at this point, I don't think there's anything that can really discourage us.
I would say that if anything, it's such a cultural bonus for him, and the fact that he'll likely be bilingual.
Oh, absolutely. He speaks Spanish because when we were in Mexico, he went to school in Mexico.
Oh, that's
So he speaks
fantastic.
Spanish, he sings songs, and we have a nanny here. That was something that was important to us. So my wife found a nanny before we got here, and we have a nanny here that speaks to him in Spanish regularly.
Wow.
So that was something that was really important to us.
Okay, so we're almost at the 2-year mark for you now, right? In January.
Mhm.
Um, what's your next move?
Um, we're not sure yet. So initially, the goal was to our family travel blog. We have a travel blog, and that was kind of going to be our income driver, and that was going to be this great thing where we documented our journey. And then the pandemic hit, and we kind of had to make a pivot. But I think the next thing for us is really enjoying and loving where we are in the moment.
Uh-huh.
I think in an effort to of course, increase our like social media presence and things that come with having a travel blog, all the other stuff outside of just writing the blog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we are really focusing on enjoying the moment because something that's important for us is giving back while we travel.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing on that a lot more too. While we were in Mexico, we really focused on helping kids and in our neighborhood, we bought Christmas toys for all the kids in the neighborhood. And we did food drives and we, had little block parties for the kids with
Oh,
bouncers and things like that.
that's beautiful.
So we really want to focus on that
Mm-hmm.
too,
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of travel and getting people to be a little bit more conscious about how they travel and how they
Yeah.
treat people when they
No,
do travel.
that is a very virtuous endeavor, and I appreciate that. That's beautiful. I really love that. So, in terms of the work situation and the organization situation, so how did you know who to go to that you could trust in countries? So, when you were going to Mexico, as an example, how did you find a realtor that was trustworthy and all that kind of stuff?
Facebook Marketplace is amazing, but we actually connected with, we started with Airbnb. So we started
Uh
place
huh.
for about 6 weeks at Airbnb. And then from there, we started contacting owners from Airbnb and asked them would they be willing to show us places. And actually, my wife is she's honestly the absolute best because she does all of our negotiations and
Yeah.
everything because that's just not my thing. Um, and she reached out to one Airbnb owner who was willing to let us come look at it. And he took it off of Airbnb and we got it at an amazing price. We only paid $400 a month in rent and we were a 10-minute walk from the beach. Uh,
Wow.
a 2-minute walk from the grocery store, 15, 20-minute walk. We were very, very close to Fifth Avenue, 10, 15-minute walk, 20-minute walk with a 2-year-old. But we were close to everything that we needed at a very affordable price.
So instead of booking directly through Airbnb, you contacted the owner and asked if you could meet.
Hmm.
Okay. So did you end up getting it for less than it was posted for?
Yeah, he wanted 600 a month, and somehow I don't know how she does it. My wife talked him down to 400, well, 8,000 pesos a month. At the time, the exchange rate was amazing, so it's $350 a month, everything included except for electricity.
That is terrific. That's a really good tip too. Okay,
Yeah.
and what about Colombia? Same methodology or?
In Colombia, no. So since I waited so last minute, we have two Airbnbs. The Airbnb we're in now, we actually went Saturday and we moved to another area. I think I wanted to take that approach. And we're not going to be here as long. It's easier to get better deals if we stay a lot longer.
Yeah.
But we knew we weren't staying here too long, 2, 3 months tops.
Mhm.
But I wanted to explore different neighborhoods. I think we didn't take as much advantage in Mexico as we could have of
Yeah.
exploring. And that's only because we were in a place where we were familiar, we got comfortable, everyone knew us, the neighbors knew us.
Sure.
So it was a certain level of comfort. And I think here in Colombia, we're trying to make ourselves a little bit more uncomfortable
Yeah.
and explore different areas because it forces you to.
Sure. Sure it does. Oh, that's wonderful. All right. So any words of advice for you know, other folks that have been thinking about doing what you're doing but have not been brave enough to try it out yet? What would your advice be to them?
I would say to just go for it. I mean, of course, don't throw caution to the wind. We planned this meticulously for about over a year.
Mhm.
We saved, always have a safety net. We had significant savings, upwards of 50 to 60,000, just because, of course, we have a son, so we have to take that into consideration.
Sure.
But I say go for it. I mean, if anything goes wrong, you can always go back home.
And how do you what's the best way to talk to your employer? Let's say, your employer isn't as, open and generous as your first employer was that let you initiate this journey. What's the best approach to take with an employer that may not be too open to this situation?
For me, I was honest with the position I'm in now. They actually wanted me to move back to California and work in office. And I just told my boss, I can't do it. So I'm willing to resign if that's something that you really want
Yeah.
for this position, but it's not something that I can do. And that's not a life that I'm willing to go back to. And she understood, and she said, yeah, you can stay working remote permanently. I don't care where you work from. So I'm not telling anyone to go threaten to quit their job.
Yeah, I know.
I'm saying for me, that was having an open discussion with her, because I told her something that's very important to me is travel and giving back while I travel. So going into these communities and helping kids is something that's important to me. And I was very honest with her about it and told her that was something that I'm going to continue to do. And she was supportive and saying, even if you have flights, let me know and we can move meetings around. And
Wow.
she was just very flexible. And I also say to let your work speak for itself.
Yeah.
If you're valued and you're bringing a lot of great things to the table and they still aren't willing, maybe that's not the right place for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because honestly,
yeah,
I get at least 3 recruiters in my LinkedIn a week asking me for if I'm open or if I'm searching for jobs, and they're all 100% remote.
wow, that's
So there
great.
are definitely jobs out there.
You're
constantly.
in a good position. Yeah. Yeah. And your boss probably admired you for what you were doing and that you were willing to stick to your guns too. I mean, I certainly would.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Maybe. But
Well,
we have a great working relationship. But yeah, it was and to come out and be honest. And sometimes I don't always tell her where I'm working from. In Guatemala, I didn't tell her I was going to Guatemala because it didn't really have an impact.
no.
The time zones are the same. Things are still getting done. The time zones are different slightly. And I think that's something to keep in mind too, because maybe you want to go somewhere where the time zones differ so you have time to explore. And that's how we do it here. So my job is 3 hours behind in California. So first thing in the morning, I can go out explore with my family. I'm back by 12 and work the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, this has been great. All right. So is there anything else that I neglected to ask that I should have asked you that you want to share?
No, I say go for it and
Go for
help
it.
change the perception of Americans in other places,
Oh
because
boy. Oh, thank
in
you.
a lot of
Yes.
places it's not good.
Hallelujah. I know you were right. You were right. I mean, hopefully in South America, it's not too bad, but I mean, I know in Europe, we really are like, yeah, not so much, not so much. All right. So I think you mentioned that you had a website. If people wanted to learn more about you and what you're doing, do you have a web address you can share?
Oh yes, it's called It's a Family Thing. So itzafamilything.com, and we share um, as much as I try to write. I'm a little behind, but we share our journey. We've shared our crazy gap year, things that happened in our lives, how we lived in Mexico on $1,000 a month, different things to do if you travel with kids. Don't be afraid. Traveling with kids is amazing. It's an amazing experience.
Wow, that's
People
great.
think it's hard, and it may be hard for an hour or two, but it is the best thing
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly, the best thing we've ever done for our son, and he loves it.
Oh, that is so good. That is such a wonderful story and such a gift you're giving to him. So that's great. Listen,
Oh, thank you.
thank you so much, Corritta. I really enjoyed talking to you, and maybe we'll catch up again when you've gotten to Asia.
Yeah, that's the plan, 2022.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Have a great afternoon.
Hey, thank you. You too.
Okay, bye.